Alors, après des constats un peu désespérants, hein, c'est le jeu Ma pauvre Lucette avec un thème comme ça, je vous propose de reprendre avec l'intervention de Christophe Bontemps. Christophe qui est économètre et statisticien de formation et qui va à son tour apporter une pierre à cet édifice, et notamment avec la problématique de la visualisation de données. Merci beaucoup Christophe.
Thank you Sabrina, and thank you Isabelle too for inviting me, and thank you Nicola for introducing so nicely this topic by doing some plagiarism on my slides. You haven't seen them, but it appears that by chance we have some slides that are common. Can you guess that? So that happened. So it's not a big deal because I must confess first that I'm a liar. So be aware, I'm doing visualization, so by definition sometimes I'm lying. But since today I've been invited to tell you the truth, I will try to show you how we can lie with graphics. But first of all, and this is no lie, I will show you what I mean by data visualization and why it is so important in any scientific discipline and even in a society. There's a huge range of practices and usage of data visualization that are named data visualization. So I will do a small experiment with you just to see that we are on the same ground of what data visualization means. Okay, if it works. It doesn't. So my question is pretty simple. This is a cloud of points where you have on the x-axis some x variable and on the y-axis some y variable. And the question is, what do you see? Anybody? Do you see something except points? No, it seems that you don't see so much. And here, do you see something? What do you see?
Correlation.
A trend, a correlation? Yes, I agree with you. I see some correlation, I see some trend. And in fact, what you just did, and probably you don't know that, you did a statistical test. You did somehow a first type of statistical test. You don't know the power of this test, you don't know the efficiency of that. You just were testing some null hypothesis, that is, there is nothing, like in the first graph, versus there is something. In the second graph, and on all the graphs above, except the first one, you see something. So when you look at the graph, you're making an implicit null hypothesis that there is nothing, and you try to say whether or not you reject that null hypothesis. And you were all saying, yes, we see something, so we reject the fact that there is nothing. And on the graph over there, you see a U shape, you see two groups, you perform a statistical test. This is how I see data visualization, and this is a sort of prism through which we will examine data visualization today. If you don't like statistical tests, you just can say that you compare things and you try to see whether there are differences or features that are similar, and this is a lighter way of doing a test. But this is something that I share with this guy, Bourrin and his co-author, in his handbook of visualization. In fact, there is something, there are many things, and we will try to see how we can change the perception or distort this statistical test. So, of course, you all have done visualization, and I will go quite fast on some of the drawbacks that you know for some of the classical visualization. Nicola already mentioned the fact that you could use ad hoc scale. We will say that like this. Ad hoc scale meaning, for example, truncating the y-axis. You mentioned that. If you look at this graph, everything is perfect. You have the numbers, you have the bars, you may have the source of the data. There's no lie here. Except that you have the visual impression that this phenomena is increasing or is different from group A to group E. In fact, it's just because you truncated the y-axis, and you know that. So people may tell you, okay, but if we do this graph, we don't see anything. Maybe it's because there is not so much. So when you do that, when you change the scale, you make a choice, and this choice has an effect on the way you perform your test. Be careful most of the time, I told you I'm a liar, I lie myself. Because I perform the wrong visualization, or I don't use the scale as I should. And I'm the first viewer of my graphs. So this is very, very bad when you lie to yourself. Because after that, you have to publish your lies. Now we know how to do it, maybe. Of course, some people use it on purpose. This is very famous view from Fox News, where you have a 35 versus a 39.6. Obviously, you don't have this perception. Even if the numbers are written, your visual perception, how you will recall the graph, is more efficient than the numbers themselves. This is the SNCF stuff, right? So here by a truncated y-axis, you show that, no, it was not many people stopped to be on strike, while the truth is that not so many people, and the strike is still quite active. So, plagiarism. I found that also very interesting in my students, and I realized a few months later that somebody did that in my room at TSC. What's wrong with this graphic is that on the x-axis you see numbers 1, 2, 3, 9. You recall in this graph what is the number of steps you perform in a MOOC. And you see something strange at 10, right? I will zoom on that. In fact, yes, there's something strange because you group not 10, but 10 to 19. So you change the horizontal axis. You can do that very easily in Excel. I saw that on Researcher. Changing the horizontal scale, grouping the numbers, and so you have an artifact that is an increase at 10. There is not in the data. Definitely not. Another way of having a mistake is to change the y-axis and to put it down. This one also was very, very popular on Twitter. You see the gun deaths in Florida after the 2005 Florida Act, stand your ground. And you have the visual impression that the number of gun deaths decreased because the axis was reversed. In fact, it increased. Nobody is lying here. Nobody is lying. These two graphs are exactly the same. The data are the same, except that the perception is very different. And you may have the wrong conclusion just by looking at your graphic. I should mention that when you look at a graphic, it's a very short amount of time. You see 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and you have the point. In scientific journal, it takes more time, and you probably spend more time examining the graphic, and sometimes the graphic is very specific to a topic. But still, the visual impression, the comparison, the statistical test. Here, for example, the null hypothesis is that there is no change after the stand your ground law, versus there is a change. And you may have reverse impression by looking the two graphs here. More seriously, or more common, are this type of graph, where you find two double axes, one on the left, one on the right. So the blue axis on the left is for the global GDP, the world GDP, and the one on the right is the German GDP. Yes, we should compare these two GDP and their evolution. So, what do we want to compare? We want to compare if these two GDP were evolving in the same way. So why not doing double scales? Well, the point is, if you play with this double scale, if you play with squeezing one or choosing the starting value for one or the other, you may end up with whatever of these 6 graphs. You can stretch the one on the right, the orange one, or the blue one, and end up with whatever comparison you want. How can you test something here? You cannot say anything, or you can say whatever you want, which is lying. So the good way of doing it, of course, is to use relative terms. For example, say, okay, we start at the same point and we do the relative variation from year to year using indexes. We know we have to do that. Sometimes we're just lazy. It's so easy to do double axis. And here the conclusion with the same data is that no, the German GDP and the global GDP didn't have the same evolution over time. This is more correct. This is really the way we should do it. I hope you agree with that. Some people use it on purpose, like this institution here, American United for Life, where you have one curve up, one curve down, with a crossing. This induces some sort of, the test is visual, or there is inverse correlation. One is causing the other, right? This is the impression you have in 20 seconds. These are the real numbers. The numbers are the same. The visualization are different. The perception is different. The message is different. The test is different. It's difficult to find a relation and to find something that even correlation between these two curves. So people use it. People use the fact that data visualization is really a very good vector for providing this test, and after the test you have an impression that you keep in mind. So I will have lots of examples, and I'm going quite fast on this because it's very... Nicola, you mentioned cherry picking, and in fact if you look at that you say, hey, there's something that has increased there. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Okay, it was cherry picking for a long time series. I just picked the series that was interesting for me, just like Frédéric Vidal picked up Mali and Senegal and Benin. You choose whatever you want to choose. This is a little bit more on the data side than on the data visualization, except that if you don't provide your sources, well, you're still lying, right? Of course, there are some professionals in communication, and let's mention the master of all, late Steve Jobs, who did this very famous keynote lecture. Apple market share is in green. So the data are available, I mean the percentage are available, so I've redone this 3D pie chart and removed some part that was not interesting to me, just to show you that by putting Apple on the bottom of this pie chart, enlarge the surface. By how much? Quite a bit. If you compare 21% with 99%, it's not the same than showing 30 centimeters square versus 20 centimeters square. Everybody knows that you should avoid any 3D representation, and in particular 3D pie charts, unless you want to lie. In fact, I will advise you to, if you want to lie, to use pie chart and say, hey, look, my market share, which is in green here, has increased. Oh yes, sure, it has increased. Yeah, I can see that from the 3 pie charts there. But less than the yellow, right? I'm not sure about the yellow, but maybe the red. You can say whatever you want. You cannot compare pie charts. So if you want to lie or to put some fuzz around your results, use pie chart and say to people, hey, believe me, this is greater than this one. So you cannot compare pie charts unless you want to lie. You can use them, sure. Not like this, not like that neither. Like that, maybe. But in fact, why people use pie chart and why pie charts are very good tools for lying is because you're not able to measure size or area. It's very difficult. For example, I don't know if you're hungry or not, but if you want to maximize your intakes, would you choose the big pizza or the 2 small pizza? Who is for the big pizza? Who is for the 2 small pizza? Okay, you're wrong. The big pizza is larger in size. So when you use bubbles or circles on any graph, even if you put the numbers, people get a wrong perception because we are not very good in measuring that. So how can we compare if we're not very good in that? You would tell me, yeah, square are difficult. Circle are difficult. Let's do that with squares, right? So if the green square is 100% and represent the total population of prisoners in jail in 2008 in the USA, you had quite a lot of time to look at this graph, and you know what the question is. The question is, what is the size in percentage of the yellow one, the blue one, and the red one? So, make up your mind on that. Okay? When I do that with students, I ask them to write them down, and I have a variation that is so big that just the variation proves that we are no good. So for the Latinos, it's 16%. You probably are this one wrong. And the fact that 37 and 43 are for the blue and red, you probably didn't get it. And you had a lot of time to see this. That's why I sometimes disagree with the decoder at Le Monde, because they use a lot of this. I'm not lying, the numbers are there, right? I'm just showing you something that doesn't allow you to have a clear view of the numbers. And this is what Tufte calls a lie, a visual lie. Now we'll do an experiment. Can I ask you, Nicolas, to stand up here? And can you tell me which one is taller, from him or me? No, you can't. Okay, good. Because we're two. And here, it's easier, right? And here. Now, can you tell me which of these? Thank you, Nico. Can you tell me which of these two boxes is bigger, or if they are the same size? The same. Wrong. And this is a trick, which is an old one. It's not a trick. It's something to make you assess the right size. Is to provide a common measure by doing this box that is exactly the same white box around these bars. Then you can compare, just like putting a ladder close to each other. You could see which of the two are taller. Unfortunately, we use that a lot. I mean bars, in bar charts. So if you're not able to compare the two bars in a big screen over there are only two to compare. Can you tell me if banana market sales have increased over time? Banana is the yellow one on this graph. No, you can't. Can you tell me for the dates? Maybe for the dates. For the apple, for sure. So why do you stack bars if you're not able to compare what is in a stack, what is stacked? You can only use the data from the banana and the total. So I have a solution for that, is to do small multiple, which is a tool in data visualization. This small multiple with different way of aligning all the fruits here, the banana, the apples, and the date, and whatever the fourth one, is a good way, and the only way to be able to compare stacked bars. Or you do just full bars, but if you're interested in the composition and compare the composition, you should find something different than stacked bars. Or you lie and you say, hey, the banana sales have increased a lot. Nobody will kill you. Of course, some people use stacked bars just, I don't know why, so I will pause a moment just for you to see how stupid this graphic is, and how, we cannot use any information where you pile the yes and no together in a question where you say, are you willing to pay for entering into TSE? That amount where you don't know who's answering what. So it's not only that you're lying, sometimes the graphics are just stupid or nonsense. But it happens that it's always with bars or some bad or very easy to manipulate visualization that you find these graphs. This is more tricky. I would ask you for your concentration. I know it's not easy, but because we all do this type of graphic. So I will ask you to look at this graphic for 20 seconds, which is very long. And then I will ask you two questions. Okay? So there are many lines here that concern the major cause of worker disability. Okay? Now the question. Is cancer increasing over the period? It's a red one. What's the answer? You're not sure. It doesn't, okay. In recent year, which cores have increased or decreased the most? You can tell the color. The graph was exactly on that purpose. You don't know. So that's good, I can lie to you, I can tell you whatever you want. You look at the graphic for 20 seconds, which is, or maybe more than that, which is very long. So if you don't want to lie, just do small multiple like this. One element compared to the rest. We do a test of one versus the other. We compare one versus the other. That's the purpose and that's the solution of this type of exercise. So if you really don't want to lie, you want people to perform the right test, the right comparison, use small multiples. This is my teacher hat that I'm wearing now. I will take my liar hat now. These lines, you know, they all increase, and I can tell you that in the middle, the difference between the two lines is increasing, decreasing, not stable. I can tell you whatever I want. I can really tell you whatever I want. Because if you compare lines, if you put two lines like this, you compare lines, you want to compare to see the difference, right? That's why you have two lines and not only one. You want to see the difference. The test is on the difference. But you don't show the difference. And if you show the difference, you see this. Because you're not able to compare lines neither, I'm sorry to tell you that. Because especially when the curve goes like this, your eyes go like that, and you're not comparing vertically. So if you want to lie and say, oh, no, the difference is the same, why? Do that. It's a very old statistical paper. In fact, there are many applications, but one moral of this is if you want to show the comparison and to tell the truth, show the comparison. Show both graphs, not only the two lines, but the comparison, the difference. Another thing that I want to tell you is it's very good if you are a manager in a firm somewhere, or managed by somebody, or perform any analysis, or want to sell camera at the Fnac, for example, use radar plots. Radar plots are just plots where you put one value on one branch of a star and another value for another branch, and then the bigger the area, the better, you will say. Yes, the bigger the area, it means you have higher scores, right? No. In fact, no. Because if you have high and low and high and low and high and low scores, or if you have high and low scores, the area will be different. By that I mean, if I just change the axis, I do this funny thing where here Tom has a greater size than Johnny, and and here Johnny has a greater size than Tom, just because I switched to axis. So radar plot, at least used like this with area, you can manipulate them. Just choose the right order of the branches. And these people don't tell you. I know some people at Airbus that use that quite a lot, and they were very disappointed when I showed them this. Yes, because it can be, how much you perform on different tasks, and so it has an impact. Now, I know I promised Sabrina that I will not try to be on time, so that's why I'm talking quite fast, but I will tell you the truth. If really you want to lie, the best would be to do a map. Maps are very, very difficult object that we use all the time, and we are pretty sure we know, we can understand, and we can figure out what is on the map. We even pretty sure we are grown-ups, right? We know the world. Because we've seen the map. We know where Italy is compared to France. But do we know the size of the countries? For example, can you name the second biggest country on this graph?
China.
The second one. The first one is Russia?
Antarctica.
Yeah, you're right, Antarctica. But you've never seen Antarctica like this. Because on any map, you don't see Antarctica at all. And there is a nice website where you can move one country and put it on top of another to see the real size. And it's really interesting because we have been growing up in a world of Mercator projection. And we know that this is an hypothesis, something that is very useful, but only for a certain purpose, which is navigation. And it's not made for comparing size of countries. And so we have a very distorted view of the world if we don't know the size of each country. If you ask, France is here, by the way. And the size is quite small. It's a big country, but it's small. So if you play there, you may realize that maps are very difficult objects full of hypotheses. And hypotheses that are not very well understood, and even if you know that this projection is better than this one or whatever, you still may be fooled yourself. I was very surprised moving Turkey to Sweden. Do that once on this website, thetruesize.com. Now I will go to something very annoying, is the fact that you can use maps to put some statistical value on top of maps. Imagine that you want to represent the number of Syrian migrants exiled in European countries. And you decide to use circles. We already know that you are not very good in comparing circles, but hopefully when you do a map, you have this legend over there where you could say, okay, these are the numbers. But you're doing a lot of hypotheses when you're doing that. There is one fundamental problem, is you're representing these circles, which represent number of people, as an area you put on top of a map that represents an area that is just a surface. What size should you choose for the circle? Small one, big ones, you have all liberty. There is no rule for that. So this is a very welcome version, and you see the title also say welcome refugees. But now I will change, and I have perfect right to change, for example, the size of the circle. The numbers are the same. The less welcome version has also changed the color, which is also something that has some meaning. And also this meaning is cultural, but this is a less welcome version. On top of that, you put the big invasion title, which is something people look at. But of course I can do this, just change the color. You see the impact of color from this to this? This is really aggressive. Once again, I have all latitude to change the color. And then the title too, just like warning. Okay, I see, you see my point. It's not my point, it's Françoise Brauken and Nicolas Lambert. We did a wonderful video on their website showing how you do a map, a statistical map, and the conclusion is really interesting. There are some other problems and some solutions. Of course, if you put numbers in relation to numbers, it's more interesting. For example, the number of refugees divided by the population is something that seems to have more information in it, and also allows the comparison across country. If you do a map, it's because you want to compare something on a country, right? So, if you want to compare countries, you have to relate to, for example, the population. And you see this number with a grid of color that I will not comment, which is well done here. But in fact, even there, and since the beginning I show you maps on this problem here, even there I'm lying, I'm doing an hypothesis that I'm only concerned with Europe. I choose where I represented this data. I choose to focus only on this part of Europe. And the big picture is this one. What I did before is just applying bad colors, bad representation, big circles, and cherry picking. The sheer of that, and probably we are not so much aware of that we can do all of that in presenting this versus that. That is, making hypotheses so that we have an impression, a visual impression of a phenomena, of a representation of data that is not accurate. I have some slide about electoral maps. I won't show you, but it will be on the slide if you want. Especially in the US, where the size of each county of each state, is so different that you have disproportion in colors when you represent red state versus blue state that is really misleading in terms of the perception you have on the results of electoral maps, electoral results. I won't show you that, but here you have something like 25 different representations of the same electoral results. And there is a website for that too. But I will go to something I found more interesting today for you. Is another very powerful rule is you can extrapolate, and that's very powerful. Imagine you record the time at the 100-meter race at the Olympic, the time of the winner for each Olympic since 1900 until 2004, and you record that for men and women. Okay, so women seems to run quite slower than men, and here is a representation that is starting at 0. But of course, the phenomena you want to examine, maybe you can focus on that. And why not? When you do that, you may observe that maybe the trend for women is a little bit more steep than the trend for men. Let's do that. Let's compute the trend. Let's do a regression. And linear regression, why not? So let's do a linear regression, and the linear regression say, hey, yes, there is a nice R-square, and yes, the woman seems to have a trend toward faster time than men. Now extrapolate. Yes, you see me right. In 2156, women will run faster than men. You're all laughing, right? Nobody will publish that ever. Nobody. This is a graph taken from the Nobody in Nature. So these three guys, Tatum, Guerra, Atkinson, and Hay, 4 guys, are genius. They published that, but there are some people here that can respond, and so I decided to do something that we should do when you extrapolate, is to go ad absurdum. So I went back to the Greek time to realize that the women were running the 100 meter in 60 seconds. So I cannot imagine the Greek statues the same way than after doing this exercise. But there is much more, and probably you see me coming to, is in the year 2636, where the woman will run a 100 meter in no time. This hasn't been published yet, but if you want to, we can associate. You know some tricks for publishing paper. I know some graphics, so maybe we can do some joint venture for that. Yeah. Another trick about curve fitting. You see the trend here, right? There's a clear trend. In fact, there's not a trend. If you do a non-parametric stuff, there is a sort of a jump here, right? There is a no. In fact, it's my random point from the beginning. But just by adding lines and trends, you may just see something that is not there. So when there is a trend, when there is a curve, when whatever, what you should believe is a statistical test that proves there is something, not only the graph. The graph is just a part of a story. And of course, this is what we mean attention. We call it attention, but the definition and of the graph, the way it has been done, the data, and what the people say is as important. To finish on a lighter note, sometimes it's good to lie. It's for your good, for good reason. And for example, we all know that this is a Berlin subway, but I can do the same with the Paris subway. This is not the real representation of Berlin. If we represent the subway in Berlin, it will be like on the right, which is not easy to use at all. But on the right, you have the real distances. On the left, you don't. You know that in any city in the world, the distance on the map for showing the subway or the bus are very often simplified, and simplified because it's easier for you to use. It's easier for you to use the graphic as a tool. It's a ski season. This is not a map, this is not a picture. This is art. This is not a representation of the truth. You see the east side as well as the west side, as well as the north side. You see all the slopes. It's just for your good. So it's neither a map nor it's art. So sometimes lying is really for good, for simplifying, and even in science, we could simplify stuff. The only thing is that we have to mention that this is a simplified view, and here are the data, and do whatever you want with that, including compare your visualization with mine. That will be a best way not to lie to people. And since I have to conclude, and maybe I'm a bit in advance, I will recall you some basic stuff that the true can be a square, the true can be a circle. We live in a world with many, many dimensions when we deal with data. Of course, presenting something in 2D is a projection. So it's a way to make things flat when they are not. And there are many problems in doing that, right? Try to compare our shadows, if we could, standing into each other on a wall. You know it won't work to measure our height. So if we live in a multidimensional world with data in multidimensional and having different features, we should be very aware, should pay attention on any visualization, because it's all based on hypothesis. So you have to ask yourself, what is the hypothesis underlying any graphic, anyone? I think that will be the end of my talk. Pay attention, open your eyes, and not only on the graphics. Thank you. I was quite fast, but there are lots of references and everything. Every link is clickable, so you can have additional information if you want that. And of course, open for questions.